Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered by Victress podcast. We are about a few days out from Christmas, so happy holidays to everybody. This will probably be posting after that, so we hope everybody had a happy and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we're feeling nice and refreshed with some good time with family, or we're not. Hence the episode today. Today I've got Tiff Duran on our podcast. Tiff is a longtime friend of mine, a kindred spirit. We have a lot of different things in common and have bonded over many hours baking in the sun, watching our boys playing baseball, doing hard things in the gym, going on walks, you name it. She is truly like an older sister to me, just happens to have the same name as my sister too, which works out great for us. And I am just really, really excited to talk to her about her story, what she's doing to serve women in our community and elsewhere. So thank you for taking the time out of your early Saturday morning with me.
Super exciting.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So Tiff, tell us a little bit. We know you're a member at Victress, have been a member for quite a while. Well, minus the little hiatus, but you've been around for a long, long time within the Victress space. But tell us a little bit about you outside of that space. Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school? Where did you go to college? All those good things.
Yeah, so I'm from Bertrand, Nebraska. Grew up in a family of 5 kids, and my parents still live back there. And I came down to Lincoln for school, went to UNL for my understudies and nursing school at Bryan, and have been a nurse for 25 plus years, still have an active nursing license. And most recently have done a certificate program through the Allender Center, which is a shoot off of Seattle School of Theology and Psychology, to get a trauma care life coaching certificate. And that's what I currently do. I also have Dan, my husband, and I have 3 stepdaughters who I call bonus daughters, and Brady, Colby, and JC. And JC's married to Ty. And then I have Peyton and Grant, my boys. And so we're just a little blended family with Sonoma, Mox, and Zara with grandbabies.
Yeah, so you've got your mom, your wife, your stepmom.
Yep.
Bonus mom.
Yep.
And you're also now grandma. Is that what you call
Gigi.
yourself? Gigi.
Gigi. They
Okay.
call me Gigi. Yeah.
At the ripe old age of
48. All the things.
I love it.
Yeah.
Tiff and I always joke we've lived like 7 lives between all of the things
We
that we've
really
done
have.
together. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about nursing, your nursing background
Yeah.
specifically. You served in a few different areas of healthcare in that nursing realm, but just give us a little bit of background on that and what you did throughout those years.
Yeah, so I came straight out of nursing school and went into the intensive care at Bryan. I worked there for like 11 plus years, maybe 13, I don't know. It all runs together. And then I went to the OBGYN realm. So I did postpartum nursery and OBGYN clinic. Very passionate about women's health and just the life stages, which I really appreciate that Victress does. They take care of women at every phase of life. And it also goes into trauma, which I now do. So yeah, our bodies are big parts of the whole care that we need as women, but as people in general.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think I remember like dropping off flyers and like seeing a picture of something in the launch board, and I was like, "That's my son's." I must know this person.
Yeah.
So no, and it's true. Like I think the way your experience in women's health and your experience in what you've been doing in the nursing realm, I would assume probably led you to wanting, a part of the reason that you wanted to get involved in more trauma-informed coaching and care. But I'm sure there's other things that probably led to that as well. If you want to speak a little bit on like what led you down this path, and then after that, let's get into a little bit like what is it? Like what is this certification? Like, what is this product that you're able to like help deliver to people?
Yeah, so one of the main premises of what I do says that you cannot lead somebody further than you've been willing to go yourself, and that's specifically in healing. So my healing journey actually started with me seeking my own care, and that was from I was in a marriage with Rye, who you knew for many years. Rye died this past year, but we were in a 20-year marriage and had a lot of hard in our marriage. And so I sought help through a group at a church, and it was called Betrayal and Beyond. And it helped women set boundaries, do feelings work. Like, it really got into me unpacking my life and the ways that I was affected both by my childhood and by my marriage relationships, those sort of things. So, come to present day, I want to give back what I've been given. And one of the ways that I was given to was a woman named Patria, who was at that church originally, and she actually heads up the Broken and Beautiful, where I now am affiliated with, is a counseling resource group who have both licensed counselors and life coaches and trauma care. So a lot of life coaching, a lot of like dealing with people's past, so all realms of trauma. And my own story is what led me to that. So dealing with all of the things like sexual abuse that I didn't know I had, didn't call it that, emotional abuse, and just like a lot of like Rye and I had like financial abuse and sexual, all of the things that get packed into trauma. Trauma is a big word that we misuse a lot, but yeah, my story is what led me to giving back in this way and to wanting to help other people.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this briefly and on a bigger scale too, of like when you're in a leadership role and you're coaching or you're doing what you're doing now, helping women navigate different levels of trauma and those types of things. And as you're leaning in to like help, it comes with this also like being vulnerable and like talking about things, you know, that we have experienced. It isn't easy to necessarily share to just however many people are listening or you know, the world at large. Like, it is
Yeah.
a part of our story. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of why we do what we do a lot of times, but it doesn't always necessarily define us in a lot of
Yes.
ways. But the relatability and the vulnerability, right? Like in the gym, we see that all the time. Like when we're able to be vulnerable with our stories and we're able to like talk about things to our comfort levels and we hold a safe space for each other, that's healing. Like that in and of
Yeah.
itself is healing when you're able to like talk about it and
Mm-hmm.
not in a I'm mad at the other person or I'm angry at the other person or I'm blaming the other person for all of my experiences, but I'm just honoring my experience, right? And you just said something to that effect, like this is my experience versus someone else's experience.
Yeah. Yeah, like when we are healing trauma, it is not to blame the other person. Although sometimes we have to process a lot of like our feelings about that privately in our sessions. But yeah, the vulnerability that we offer other people when we're willing to talk about our story is actually so helpful in them being able to be vulnerable. It causes us to be a safe place for people to feel like they can open up and actually have an outlet, because a lot of people keep it bottled up or don't have safe people to talk to about their stuff.
Yeah. And it's healing for us too, right? To a certain extent of like, okay, like
Totally.
it's using something deeply like in us to help somebody else in a different
Yes.
way or in their own experience. Obviously we all experience our own things and there's spectrums of everything, but it allows that healing internally just as much for you as it does for other people, which is why like the profession of giving or the professions where we're giving of ourselves and holding space for other people is so rewarding and so
Yeah.
incredibly fulfilling, but it's also can be very depleting and
Mm-hmm.
very energetically draining. So what are
Mm-hmm.
you doing to help with that side of things
Yeah.
in your own self-care, in your own journey right now as you're leaning in and navigating hard spaces for a lot of people?
Yeah. So, this work is actually so life-giving to me that I almost feel energized when I have just been like sitting with somebody because I almost feel like I need to say like what it actually is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that people like know what I'm talking about. But a lot of the times trauma is like used in a very broad way, and trauma is actually not what happens to us, it's what happens inside us because of what happens to us. So the way that our body holds what happened to us, the way that our brain has to like survive or is unable to like make connections. When trauma happens, it actually shuts down a part of our brain that allows us to have language and process. So when that happens, then it's like we've had something happen, but we don't have words or like a way to explain it. And two things have to happen to make trauma: a sense of powerlessness and lack of an empathetic witness. So, like, the same thing could happen to both of us. And for me, I didn't have anybody there with me, but you had somebody with you that, like, was like you felt powerless in that moment, but you had somebody come alongside you and say, I'm with you. Like they were attuning to you or containing like some of the blow of what happened to you. And trauma can be literally anything.
Well,
Like,
we said like big T, little t, right? Like
yes,
there's a spectrum of what this means, and it's
yes,
hard because we only have one word to define like a lot of different situations, and it could
yes.
be your life, like
Mm-hmm,
your life circumstances,
mm-hmm,
your financial well-being,
mm-hmm.
your your safety, your it isn't always just interpersonal conflict,
Yes,
right?
totally. And like big T trauma, like when people mention that, like a lot of times they're thinking about physical abuse, sexual abuse, like you're getting raped, molested, like you're getting something happening to you against your will where you can't act on behalf of yourself. And little t trauma is like all of those other things that are like that have affected my brain and body, but they're not those things. So that could be as small or big for somebody as like getting left out as a teenager or a breakup or a like whatever it is, like if has affected your brain and body, it's affected you. And so we don't compare traumas because it's just not the same. Like sometimes we have a thing in society where we say, well, I don't have cancer or I don't have this happen. I haven't had this, that, or the other happen. So, I mean, I don't have anything to complain about. I should be grateful. Well,
Well,
then
talk
we would
about the
just
birth
never
space in
train.
that, like the birth space in that, right? Like birth trauma, for
Yes.
example, is like I'm sure in your profession you saw that come up a lot. Like
Huge.
I have a healthy baby, so I have no reason to
Mm-hmm.
complain about the experience that I just had or the trauma that just happened to me.
Yeah.
And from like you said, like an empathetic witness, there's
Mm-hmm.
probably sometimes not that present in that
Yes.
setting. And yeah, like, we
Mm-hmm.
hear that all the time in that regard. Like, I shouldn't be complaining because I have a healthy baby. Um,
Yes.
well, if we didn't have a healthy baby, that would be a different tea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this is still a tea. This is still a trauma.
Yes.
And being aware of that is like hard for I think a lot of women to like not self-minimize because I should just be
Mm-hmm.
grateful.
Yeah. I feel like we minimize our stories all the time to the point where we deny what's happened in our life. And we do that because other people also deny that it's a big deal. And so when somebody's like telling us this is a big deal to me, then it's like I want to like meet them there
Yeah.
so that they can't, because otherwise they can't get out of that. if people are minimizing your experience, it's like you are stuck there without an empathetic witness. And even if I don't know exactly what that feels like, I can still stand in the gap to say, I'm gonna I'm gonna be here to attune to you and meet you where you're at and not leave
Yeah.
in that space.
So when you're working with a licensed practitioner and yourself, what does that look like first for a patient coming in or seeking
Mm-hmm.
treatment or whatever it may be? Are they meeting with them first and then they're coming to you on the other side of that, or how are there levels as far as like how you're partnered, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I get direct referrals, and my work with story work, and I actually use a ton of modalities, but I actually get referred directly from other people, from usually word of mouth, or I facilitate at the Allender Center for the certificate program, and so I will get referrals from them. I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking. Hopefully my
We can mute that to a certain point.
Okay. Okay. I'm like for the love. Um but I'll get referrals from them. So it doesn't have to go through a licensed counselor. I do my own work. But what happens is like somebody will come to me. So I see a ton of like kids, teenagers, college, mostly girls, but I see both, and then women. And it's so fun because they'll come and they'll either bring me a story. So they literally like write out a life story like from childhood or from now, or they bring me a circumstance that they're going through in like a regular week. So, like, I'm feeling super ambivalent, which usually college kids don't use that word until they learn what it is. But I'm like, I want to be in relationship, I don't want to be in relationship, and I feel this tug of war, like what's happening inside of me. And so we'll go either into the story, they'll read their story out loud, and then I will name things. So because trauma causes us to lose language and process, that's what I provide. I provide language and process. So each person's story is their own story. So, like, I have to act in humility to say, I don't know your story, but I know how to help you find you in your story. And so I ask certain questions or direct in ways or name things such as shame, contempt. A lot of times in like sexual stories, we feel complicit. Like, well, I shouldn't have been there, or a lot of girls get told, well, you shouldn't have been wearing what you were wearing. It's BS.
You didn't fight back, you just said no.
Yes, all kinds of stuff. So you feel complicit, like it happened to me because I caused part of that. And so I just empower people with language and with, like, when we have a coherent story, when we understand what happened to us and why we're feeling what we're feeling and what's happening in our body. I use the body a lot. So, like you had asked prior, like, what do I do to take care of myself? One of the ways that I can read other people and read other people's stories is I feel I've become very attuned at feeling like what is my body doing when they're talking, even if they're like unable to show emotion, or like a lot of times we're like shut down. So we go into fight, flight, or freeze or fawn, and we can't respond in a certain way, or we're dissociating because it's too painful. And so I just want to stay with them. And so I will be like, in my body, I'm feeling like a lot of like restlessness and anxiety in my chest. Are you feeling that? And they'll be like, how did you know? And it's like, because even though your face is not showing anything, because maybe it wasn't safe for you to show your face, I can still feel that you're activated in your body. And so we name certain things like shame, contempt, like, or I name I'd be super angry if somebody did that to me. And they're like, well, it's just like, it was just normal. Like, and we want to deny or minimize a lot. And it's like, you can't heal if we don't feel. So a lot of people like think healing is like when I get happy and I'm all put together and I like come out on the other side amazing. But really, healing is like the ability to feel, the ability to allow ourselves to set our own boundaries, to know our story, and to actually like I want to celebrate the whole self. Not like I want you to feel like you can be your whole self and not have to hide any part of you because you feel like it's too much or not enough or what have you.
Oh, it's so powerful. So powerful because it's so true. Like, and I know you personally, so I know,
Mm-hmm.
the empathetic side of you and that empath in you. You have that ability to feel what other people are feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and name it and give it,
Mm-hmm.
a certain amount of permission to hold
Mm-hmm.
space, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that, you know, I think it's a gift. My
Mm-hmm.
therapist has sometimes said my empathy is also somewhat of a trauma response because, right, like I'm reading the room and I'm making sure
Mm-hmm.
it's safe and I can feel the
Mm-hmm.
energies and I can feel the moods and I can feel what I'm walking into. So it's like I've learned how to do it as well. So
Yeah.
it's a dual thing. It's a gift, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
like I have a response in that way of like,
Mm-hmm.
am I safe? Like, is this
Yes.
safe? Is this safe? Is this a safe environment for me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those are things that I continue to work through. I want to touch on the stress responses that you mentioned. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important that we hear fight or flight consistently. There's fawn,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's not one that like is necessarily talked about a ton,
Yeah.
in that space. So if you wouldn't mind going into those three kind of like responses in regards to, and this can be trauma, but this can also be stress, right? Like this can be
Yeah.
a lot of different things in regards to like how we respond.
Yeah. So, we were all made with a brain that has survival skills. So, your frontal lobe is not fully formed until you're 26 years old. So, why we always say with like kids and teenagers, what were you doing? I don't know. Like, literally, the frontal lobe is like where we have logic and like, we can think through things and
Oh my
like,
gosh, I have so much big T trauma before the age of 26. It's not even funny.
right? It's like we're just surviving sometimes. So, but the back of our brain is like our reptilian brain is like fight, fight, freeze, or fawn. So you don't actually get a choice what your body picks for you, which is so
Guess what? This one.
so great. And so like sometimes people are really hard on themselves because okay, like in that situation, like I got yelled at and I just froze. Like why couldn't I do something?
Now,
And
I have a question on that. Is
yep.
that related to childhood? Is that related to like how you've been brought up, or is it just like an innate like you get this response for this
Yeah.
situation?
So you can have different responses, but it is like childhood. So it's like your brain as it's like developing. The reason that we do trauma care is like we're trying to get there's a part of the brain that like survives. It says danger. Like I'm getting chased by a tiger and no matter what that danger was, that unsafe feeling was, it could be your mom yelling. It could be your dad's face going like calm. Like your brain automatically reacts as a kid, even a baby. Like so you have one side of your brain that is doing this like I am just reacting to the tiger coming to get me. There's another part that's right by there that actually provides like okay, this is actually what is happening.
Okay.
And when we start healing our story, this part of the brain can tell this part, it's okay. Like we're safe even though our body's still reacting like we need to survive. So, for instance, like with fight, usually we'll like either yell words or we'll physically fight in survival.
Or run.
Yeah, so that's flight.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sorry.
flight is like I'm out. Like I'm out. I don't want to stay here. Like this is not safe. Freeze is like literally like we just go frozen. There's also a form of freeze. It's called functional freeze. I will sometimes do this where it's like you can go about all of your work and do all the things, but at night you feel like completely exhausted. So this summer when Rye died, I felt like I was in functional freeze. Like I was like, okay, I need to get all the things done. I need to take care of the boys, the kids, all the things. But then it was like my body like needed downtime. It's like I can't even. And so as we grieve, then you come out of that. Or as we do, like one of the ways I take care of myself is trauma release. So you're actually doing exercises that release trauma from the vagus nerve and the psoas muscle, which is in your pelvic area, to release that trauma that your body holds. And then fawn is one that we don't talk about often, one that girls especially, like I learned how to do it, like I won't even say I learned how to do it, I just do it.
All the nines in the world are gonna start nodding really
Right?
quickly here. If you're an Enneagram 9, listen up.
And the twos, and yes, it's like we're people pleasing. We're doing whatever we need to do to appease the situation so that we can get our needs met and survive. So, yeah, it's like something happens to us, even as like as a kid, like mom yelling or dad's face going stone, like those things create in us danger, like this is not safe response. And it doesn't happen for everybody. Like some kids get yelled at and they're like, okay, like whatevs. But a lot of kids like will fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it's something that happens in your brain. It's like very organic. Reptilian means that it's like caveman. I'm running from the animals. Like I'm just trying to survive. So when we get to be adults, then we want to remind ourselves we're adults now and we can come out of that. But the way that we do that is when I'm in session with somebody, we go from present day or from their story back to their child self, which is part of internal family systems. It like says that we all have parts of us, child parts of us that didn't get healed and didn't get what they needed. And so when we are adults, we'll be like, why did I have such a big reaction to that? What in the heck? And instead of being hard on ourselves, which we tend to be, I would say, okay, your internal critic is like feeling very activated instead of like feeling like, ugh, what is wrong with me? Like in kindness, can we say, isn't it understandable that my internal critic feels like it needs to rev up right now? And then be curious, like what is happening right now? And what memory does it go back to? Because the little girl self or the little boy self needs healed. The adult self knows like this feels ridiculous or this feels like out of proportion to what's happening. The little girl self doesn't know that. So when we go back to the memory, so like getting in trouble by mom and dad or like not feeling enough in some way, when we go back there, what did the little girl need that she didn't get? And then our adult self can provide for our little girl self, and that's where the healing happens.
Yeah, I've done a few like inner child, I guess is one of the ways that you could call that, like inner child sessions with some therapists over the years, and I remember doing one that was like very powerful. I'm not going to go into all the details of it because then that would be a whole nother conversation. I remember we got to the point where, we had kind of processed everything, seen it through different lenses, working on, seeing it through myself in that moment, seeing it through the lens of like myself now, like how can I see the difference? Can I, be in the situation and then come out of the situation and see it from a different lens? And then we got to the point where it was like, okay, like I want you, she said, like, I want you to have a conversation and give this little girl sitting there, however old, what she needs. Like, I want you to like say the things that you would have wanted to hear in that moment. And she asked me, she said, do you want it to come from your parents or do you want it to come from you? Like, you get to choose in this moment, like, who is going to say this to her? And for me in that moment, it was like, I need this to come from me. Like, I want to show up for me right now. To be able to like speak into her, that little girl, like you said, like, that little person that's, feeling all of these things that don't make sense, but the adults can logic it, but you're still feeling it. Like it doesn't go away. Like those emotions are still deep and raw. And we do self-care practices like don't talk to yourself that way. Don't don't speak negative comments about yourself, like those types of things. But this is bigger. This is deeper. This is like going in and I don't want to say rescuing yourself because that feels like a little bit, I don't know, like too like glittery. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but
integrating.
yes.
So what we're trying to do is that lost girl or that girl who doesn't feel like she's getting her needs or did get her needs met, you're integrating with yourself. So you're like putting the parts of yourself that you kind of abandoned back together.
Yeah.
So good, Stacy.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It was powerful. It was a very like, oh wow, like very emotional, obviously. I'm not showing that right now, but it was a very emotional experience and a very vulnerable experience for me. And I will say, like, if my session hadn't been a safe space, I don't think I could have done that, like, with the provider that I was with. So your role in that is so huge in regards to, like, creating a space where someone, not only are you guiding them to those types of experiences, but then you're like just sitting there holding that space. And like, I know for me and a lot of therapists that I've worked with in the past, I'm so self-aware and I've been told that I'm a little hard on myself. And so I'm like constantly analyzing and I'm constantly reflecting and I'm constantly trying to like understand like where this is coming from and could it be this or could it be this? And I'm always taking on the responsibility of it versus like allowing maybe that maybe that's not mine. Like maybe this is actually mine to take on. And so your role in that, not saying that you've done therapy with me, although I feel like you kind of have.
We do all the time. That's what's great about women. Yes.
But I mean, just it's so important to be a safe space is what I'm trying to say. Like what you're doing is just so powerful and so healing and you are holding them accountable too. Like there is a certain level of like, I'm going to hold you to the fire a little bit here and make it burn a little bit so that we can really start to integrate these things and really start to like change the pathways and change the narrative and change how you're showing up. Because otherwise, if you're someone like me and you're not holding me accountable, I can like run circles around it for a while, right? Like I can be like, okay, like I got there, like like go back in there.
It's so interesting because we all can be hard on ourselves or we can be very dismissive, like, whatevs, I don't have any trauma, like, especially like there's attachment styles and it's like, the anxious or the ambivalent attachment will like remember most everything and they know like their memories and all the things.
Times, who was there, what's happening,
right?
What I was wearing.
Yep. The smells, all the things. Yeah. the avoidant attachment like doesn't want to remember anything. So a lot of times we talk about the avoidant attachment needs to go back and like look at pictures, watch movies, see what you resonate with, like become curious about your story. And the disorganized, sometimes I want to be remembering, sometimes I really don't. Like, and then almost everybody thinks they have a secure attachment, and it's like I don't know many people who have a secure attachment. Like, it's like we have all come from, like, what I like to say is trauma has happened to everyone. You're a person, trauma has happened to you. So, like, just being able to, like, look into your story is like a gift that you can give yourself, and being curious about like, okay, like why am I being so hard on myself, and where can I find kindness right there? Like, what initiated me being hard on myself way back when? Like, what is that doing to help me or protect me?
I think it's powerful too because you talked about, we're talking a lot about interpersonal relationships here, specifically, but this translates into all areas of your life, right? Like,
Yes.
this is like, I've done attachment style work on myself recently, like just from an awareness standpoint. I'm a learner. Like, if I can understand something,
Yeah.
which is also a trauma
Yeah.
response, if I can understand it, then I can like somehow like feel okay with it.
Yes.
But the attachment style stuff, how it shows up in work, how it shows up in decision making, your relationship with money, or like so many different things are also related to like your attachment styles, your trauma responses, your like all of these different things. And it's such a spectrum of like, we
Yes.
think like how it's affecting my marriage, or how it's affecting my relationship with my kids, or my ability to date, or, I feel hot and cold in relationships, or whatever it may be. But it is like way bigger than that. It is
Yeah.
showing up in ways that you probably aren't even aware of in regards to like decisions you're making, how you're feeling, impulsivity, like so many different things, right?
Yeah. Which is so good, Stacy, because I think that a lot of times people don't want to look at their story, don't know their attachment style, like don't know, literally they don't even know that this stuff exists. And yeah, my trauma response is also not being found, not knowing. So I just like, even in my story of coming to this work, it's like I like got in that group years ago and I was like, I'm learning everything about everything. Like, I don't even know what this world is, like, but I have to figure it all out. And so figuring it all out on my own instead of like being calm inside. I was not able to be calm inside without, I have to know. And now it's turned into like such a gift. My trauma has been a gift because you realize like some of it has cost me a lot, but some of it has given me a lot of good too. Like all of our learning.
Know it.
Right.
I'm podcasting.
Oh, I love it.
Stop it. We'll use the other bathroom. We'll clean it off. Beckham, I really can't. Stop.
This commercial comes to you from Beckham, who is the cutest little boy ever.
I can't use that bathroom. There's pee on it.
Boys. Boys.
Anyway, no, it's an awareness thing. I think sometimes being self-aware can be almost more challenging, like
Yeah.
to a certain extent. How do you navigate that? I don't want to say it's like hypochondria of the mind, but
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like it's when you are constantly like ruminating or trying to understand something or trying to gain perspective on this or that. And I've worked with my therapist a lot on like understanding like my response to things in regards to like, can I just feel it? Can I just let that be? Or do I
Yeah.
have to like understand where it's coming from every time?
Yeah.
And finding peace in that, right? Like, how do you navigate the spectrums of like disassociating, sure, but then on that anxious spectrum, it's like we're gonna like overanalyze this and we're gonna
Yeah.
like really get into it.
So I find if I leave myself to my own devices, so one of the things that I love is I have to continue my healing work because I can't bring somebody further than I've been. When I'm, wanting to, one of my favorite ways to survive is to get busy doing and not being. So we say we need to be a human being, not a human doing. And so continuing to, the thing that heals is not like knowing everything about everything, knowing where everything came from. I want to have a congruent story where I can understand my story, but what heals is the connection with another person. Having somebody stand in the gap with you, whether it's your therapist or another person, to connect. We were made relational people, and when we didn't have somebody, an empathetic witness, and we felt powerless, when I feel powerless again, when I feel like I just like keep doing all of these things, instead of like getting frustrated with myself, I'm like, okay, it's understandable that I'm here again because this is the way I learned how to survive. And I'm going to go and meet with my therapist so I can get connection and have somebody understand where I'm at. And in the connection, in the attunement and containment, that's where my nervous system, so that's something we didn't talk about, but like you have a window of tolerance and I need to get back in my window of tolerance. I need another person to help mirror for me all the things that we needed as a kid, all the things we needed as a baby. So I need somebody to like mirror for me what I'm feeling, what's happening inside of me. I need somebody to meet me or attune to me. And in the connection, that's where my nervous system says I can like get back to like feeling regulated because I have somebody coming alongside me, helping me regulate when I am not able to regulate myself.
I think that's a really good point, just bringing up central nervous system kind of like towards the end here. Like, I don't think people realize how integrated and important like that side of things is. And I'll say sometimes like not good for my nervous system, or like my central nervous system needs this, like, and I think it's just something that I'm aware of and like can't always support, right? Like I can't always support that. But when we're talking about what Victress is and what we're talking about in regards to intentionality of exercise, and we talk about like intensity of exercise and how that's appropriate and like those types of things, like we talk about the central nervous system a lot, like how much, where are we at as far as your threshold of, what did you just call it, like
your window of tolerance?
Your window of tolerance. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about like all of the other things that we can't control all the time that are like maybe fluctuating that window of tolerance, and we throw in too much high intensity stuff from an exercise perspective.
Yeah.
We throw in too much stuff that, and we're not able to recover from, right? Like you can recover from it, great, but we're throwing more out and we're not coming back down into that window of tolerance.
Yeah.
Is the way I'm visualizing that.
Yeah.
Because it is like therapy, all of the other things. That's why central nervous system is so important, because it affects so many other things. It affects your hormone regulation, it affects your sleep, it affects like you would know way more than me, but
well, it's so good what Victress does. It's so funny because like even when like Victress has a lot of intentionality, but like even like the recovery, the active recovery, the ways that we stretch before we go into exercise, it actually like allows our body. We even do trauma release, dead bug, like these kind of things are trauma release exercises that are so good for the body. And like in exercising, you're able to dispense or like dispel a lot of anger. You're like exercise for your body. Like sometimes, especially when I was younger, like I could do all the like intense exercise. Now, as I'm getting into perimenopause age, it's like Victress is very intentional about, okay, we need less intensity. We need more recovery. Like, it helps me regulate my body and where my body is. And the window of tolerance is like hyperarousal and hypoarousal. And just a quick story about that. Stacy, when I was going through grief with Rye, I was hypo aroused. So I was like, my body feels like I don't even want to move, like almost like paralyzed. And Stacy came over and she's like, okay, we're going for a walk. And just to have like your feet on the earth and to have another person with you, it's like bringing my, like using another person's energy or like the earth, walking, movement to like regulate your bringing back into, okay, now I feel like I'm coming back to my midline.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it can be, we can do too much in those moments, and sometimes we have to do something.
Yes.
Like, it can be a spectrum there on what we actually need, and it's usually what you don't want.
Right.
Right? Like,
So true. Yep.
it's usually like, I don't want to move, or I don't want to stop moving.
Yes.
Like, it's usually a spectrum of one or the other. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, what do I need? And like
Yeah.
figuring out what do I need versus what do I want
Yeah.
is a very, very challenging process for a lot of people.
So challenging. My word for the year was rest, because usually I'm the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. Let's go, let's go. And it's like been so weird to rest, not in a way that's like scrolling or
Right.
binging TV or, yeah,
Right.
like just to allow my body to be at rest and be okay with that.
It's powerful. I have said, like, the body fascinates me, obviously, in so many different spectrum, and a woman's body is just, I mean, I'm going to say it, I think it's just that much more incredible, the spectrum of what we experience, the spectrum of what we, like, the cycles we go through, the stages of life, the spaces we hold for people, for each other. It's just a beautiful, fascinating, incredible thing, and movement in and of itself, muscle, energy exchange, cardiovascular responses, all of those things, but the human mind is so deeply, deeply incredible, and the way that aligning with someone like you can allow ourselves to just become, I don't even want to say a better version of ourselves, but the version of ourselves we are supposed to be, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not about getting better necessarily, or like you said, healed. It's about just being who we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And allowing ourselves that experience with a trusted provider is just amazing. It's an amazing experience. I can't say that you always feel better, but
You don't.
no, but it does give you a sense of being seen and being
Yeah.
understood, and in this life, like, that's one of the most powerful gifts that you can give somebody. And so your work is truly, truly incredible. And I obviously love and appreciate you as a human outside of your work and all of the things. But how can people find you? How can we get you connected with, are you taking new patients? What does this look like for you?
Yeah, I'm taking new clients, and I am at the Broken and Beautiful. I'm affiliated with them. I office with them. I usually see most of my patients on Zoom or in my home office, but you can find me at www.wholecelebrationofyou.com. I have a website there, or you can email me at tiffany@thebrokenandbeautiful.com. Call me 402-304-0027. I would love to meet with you and help you find more of you.
Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful, powerful thing. I'm so pumped for you, Tiff. This is like truly what God put you on this earth to do. I mean, and everything that led you here, as hard as it is, and I say that about my own experiences sometimes, like, I can't feel resentment for the experiences I've had, because they made me who I am. And
It's
I
so
like who I
true.
am pretty well.
Yep. I love who you are.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
love who you are. And same to you, right? Like, all of the things that we've been through, all of the experiences that we've had, the way that you have held yourself with grace and love, and an example of boundaries and self-care. I just
Hmm.
truly admire you, and the journey that's led you here was what it was supposed to be. So
Yeah.
grateful that we're here now.
It reminds me of your phoenix,
Yep,
Stacy.
yep, yep.
Rising
So for
strong.
yep, for those of you that don't know, I've got a pretty strong attachment to the phoenix bird, and it's true. Like the fire is
Hmm.
what makes us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go in a lot of different fires.
Yes.
That's what I've learned.
We
It's not
have.
just one fire. Sometimes there's a lot of different fires.
Right?
In different
So
spectrums
true.
of your life, in different areas of your life,
Hmm.
there's going to be fire. And the
Hmm.
longer you can just sit in that fire and understand it and
Yeah.
experience it and find yourself in it,
Hmm.
once you find yourself in that fire, all of a sudden you come out a more beautiful version of yourself than you were before. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, right? So you could
Yes.
do butterfly too, but that just doesn't seem as like powerful, right? Like,
There's no fire.
there's no fire.
You have
Yeah.
to get in that, like,
Yeah, it's
whatever.
maybe, and maybe it's because I'm claustrophobic too.
You're like, I don't want to be in that.
No, thank you. I'll burn. I'm good.
Love it.
Well, thank you for your morning. Thank you for your
Yes.
time. I'm so excited to get this episode out to the universe and hopefully get you some people to help find themselves more and more. And that's what we're
Yes.
all about. So thank you. Thank you.
Love it. Love you, girl.
Love you.